Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode. Joining me today is Michael Georgeski. Sorry, we've been away for the last couple of weeks. Obviously, the first week was Easter. There was no games to review anyway. And the second week, I was sick. Michael was away, so just didn't work out for a number of reasons. But we are very glad to be back and bringing back all the action. Michael, how's it been, mate?
Yeah, Matt. I've been good. Obviously, we've been off the last couple of weeks. So first and foremost, it's good to get back into it. And obviously, I'm experiencing some camera issues tonight that I'm hoping to get fixed up. So unfortunately for you and the viewers at home, you won't get to see my beautiful face. So
Yeah,
hopefully we can get
we'll,
fixed up soon.
we'll just have to look at my ugly mug today, but can always switch to the audio version if you don't want to look, so it's all good. Now that we've got the banter out of the way, Michael, mate, let's start with NPL. We had some absolutely cracking matches. We'll start with O'Connor and Tuggeranong though. O'Connor were the victors in this one, 4-1 over Tuggeranong United. I was watching this one on the old bar TV when it was happening live. Paketti Manda put through a lovely ball for Ihegi, cross goal for him to place it in the back of the net in the 34th minute. I'm not sure if he was intended as a shot or he went for the pass instead. Nonetheless, though, it did the job. 6 minutes later, Knights doubled their lead as Manda received the ball on the edge of the box. Did a couple of steps as he ran in, step overs as he ran into the box, cut across his marker and unleashed an absolute bullet of a shot into the bottom right post. It was an absolutely fantastic strike there. Just before the stroke of half time, the Knights made it 3 as Tyson Livermore struck a corner. It was headed back to Daniel Roberts, who struck in a cross for the far post, which was squared for Connor Bill, who was just able to tap it in. And the Knights went into halftime 3-0 up. It was Tuggies, though, who came out first with the goal in the first half as an attempted clearance out of the box fell to Ewan Peterkin, who cracked one from outside the box. However, it found its way via a deflection off Patrick Hislop. So Tuggeranong did look bright, obviously got the goal albeit through a deflection. They created more chances. They were looking lively. However, it was O'Connor who scored next, though, 6 minutes later, after there was a neat 1-2 between Ihegi and Manda, which began play. Ihegi squared it in the box for Riley Angelo Santi, who battled it with the two defenders to get it over the line. O'Connor made it 5-1 just before halftime as Ihegi laid off a ball around the defender, which Manda ran onto and buried it past the keeper at the far post. Overall, very good display from O'Connor, and it's also their first victory of the campaign after a draw versus Croatia, of course, before Easter, and then a loss last week to Olympics. So well done to O'Connor. Took advantage after that first goal of the sort of the spaces in the Tuggeranong defense, and obviously got their first win of the season. And like I said, despite the initial defensive, bright defensive display from Tuggeranong, they just weren't able to hold out after that first goal. And unfortunately for them, this is now 15 goals conceded in their last 3 games. I know it's still early days, but safe to say that Mitch Stevens will be trying to look up the shore that defense and sort of look how to sort of plug the gaps after Tuggeranong sort of concede that first goal, because it seems like that's just where it happens after that. So, like I said, still early days, but hopefully Tuggeranong can sort of find that solution soon. Michael, who do we have next up?
Yeah, before I get into the next game, Matt, I think it's sort of important that you highlighted all the things you did in that last match. And I think for Tuggeranong, obviously, it's just that adjustment period of playing NPL football again, as opposed to CPL, in which they were in last season, where they were obviously very defensively solid. But like you mentioned, 15 goals conceded already this season. So that's an area that Mitch Stevens is definitely going to be concentrating on in the training park heading into the rest of the season. So hopefully for him and Tuggeranong, they can sort of look to turn that around. But nevertheless, we'll move on to our next match, Matt. It was West Canberra Wanderers 0, Monaro Panthers 2, courtesy of Michael John and Rocco Streaker's goals in the first half. Monaro made it back-to-back wins with a victory over West Canberra in this one, away from home as well, which adds a little bit more to getting the win as well. It was a lovely afternoon for football in the capital, Matt. And, it started with Michael John using his striker's instinct that we've sort of been accustomed to seeing over the years with him in that position, just being at the right place at the right time to steer home a finish inside the 6-yard box after some good work from Rocco Stricker, who managed to pick him out in the penalty area. The latter mentioned, would be involved yet again for the Panthers, this time on the score sheet after converting from the penalty spot, sending the keeper the wrong way to double Monaro's advantage after 40 minutes in this contest. The second 45 minutes were more closely contested as West Canberra continued working on obviously getting themselves back into the game. So they plugged up a few of those holes in defense in the second period, but ultimately Monaro proved a little bit too strong in this match as they held on for all 3 points in the end. So, I mentioned there a very good win for Monaro. It obviously gives them another victory after starting off the season not so great, but they've managed to sort of get their heads back in the game and obviously have built on their confidence to be able to get back-to-back victories, and they'll obviously be looking to take that now further forward. And we know for West Canberra Wanderers, it's going to be a struggle, but they can take some positives out of that second half performance against a very good side in Monaro, who are obviously a fantastic side last season, and not much has changed this season. They're going to be a quality outfit for all the teams in NPL, so plenty for West Canberra to still work on, but Monaro will without a doubt be happy that they were able to get 3 points and a clean sheet in this one, Matt.
Yeah, second win in a row for Monaro, so congratulations to them. The next one was an absolute cracker, Michael. I'm not sure if you checked this one out, but wow, I was watching this one live and I just couldn't believe it. Talked to a few people the next day at Deakin Stadium when I was there for commentary for the women's, and everyone thought this game ended about 2 or 3 times, which I'll get to shortly. Canberra Croatia had the first great chance of the night as Stephen Dominici stepped up to take a penalty. However, it was superbly saved by Jacob Cole. Stephen Dominici made up for that penalty miss, though, in the 29th minute, as the end of a great team play from Croatia ended up with Jason Ugrinic whipping in a low cross for Dominici, who cracked a shot at goal. I think it took a slight deflection, but it was a goal nonetheless. Tigers came closest to leveling the score just before halftime as Nick Taneski hit the inner part of the post as he cracked a low shot past Sam Brown. Tigers leveled the score in the 70th minute via a huge corner kick that was whipped in, and Milanitovic headed the ball across goal for Kyle Senior, who nodded it in the back of the net. Marco Guy was sent off for the second time this season as he received a second yellow card in this matchup. After this, Tigers took the lead, took a darted run through. It was Nick Taneski who took a darted run through the left side of the box, struck a shot which was saved by Sam Brown. The rebound came into the path of Emilio Kishta, who whipped in a cracking low shot for the back of the net, which made it 2-1. This was in the 89th minute. Sorry, not straight after the second yellow for Gaia. A few minutes later, in stoppage time, Jason Ugrinic whipped in a ball into the box, which glided through the majority of the players, and none other than Daniel Barrach was the one that was able to capitalize at this moment to square things up at 2-2. And at this point, we're a few minutes into stoppage time, you thought, okay, this is it now. Mind you, in the 89th minute when Tigers made it 2-1, a lot of people thought, all right, this is it now. However, when it seemed to all be done and dusted, there was more drama into it. 6 minutes, I believe it was, into stoppage time. Tigers whipped in a corner that was headed forward and put into the back of the net by Milanicevic to ultimately win the whole thing. What a match this was. It was back and forth, had some slick football, some great counterattacks. There was a lot of drama. It was also very rough and tough at times. There were a lot of cards. I mentioned the 2 yellow cards for Guy there, but a lot of other players got yellow cards in this one as well. Referee Nathan Shakespeare also let quite a bit go in this one to let the game flow. So this match literally had everything. Tigers have now won 3 wins from 3, while Croatia have 1 draw, 1 loss, and 1 win. So well done to Tigers. They have a perfect record to start the season with all 9 points. And Croatia, I was about to say they'll be disappointed not to get the points, but they at one point they thought they'd lost it, then they thought they'd win it, then they thought they'd lost it. Just one of those. It was just one of those footballing nights. Probably worth mentioning as well, though, Croatia did have that match midweek as well against Monaro, which they went through, which they were able to break their duck as well against Monaro in the Oz Cup, going through in that one to the semi-final. So it was one hell of a match at Deakin Stadium, and sort of makes you think if you miss that one, don't miss the next Tigers and Deakin match, because it seems like it's going to be another absolute cracker. Who do we have next up, Michael? And by all accounts, this looked like an absolute cracker as well on Sunday Arvo, the AS.
That's exactly what I was going to follow up with, Matt. I mean, you sort of just broke down there an absolute classic that took center stage there at Deakin Stadium, and that was, pretty much exactly what happened. This match that I'm about to get into followed very similar lines in terms of a 3-2 scoreline, which obviously emphasizes how entertaining it was. But in this case, it was Gungahlin United 3, Canberra Olympic 2, goals from Timotheo Green, Giampaolo, and for Canberra Olympic, Thomas James, back in Canberra, back on the score sheet, and Luca Flores on the score sheet as well for the away side Olympic. Obviously, first up, what an entertaining match this one was. In a weekend full of last-minute drama, Matt, as we sort of just touched on there in the NPL men's space. Timotheo opened the scoring in this one after brilliantly finding a pocket of space in between the lines to score from outside the area to make it 1-0 to Gungahlin after 11 minutes. So a good start for them. And from that moment onwards, they would then add to their lead. They would add to their advantage following a fantastic header from Max Green to head across goal, which proved too much for the keeper to prevent going in the back of the net. So it was 2-0 to Gungahlin in this one after 22 minutes. So they seemed to be in cruise control at that moment in time. But, despite, for Olympic, despite being a couple goals down, as a result of Gungahlin starting this match very well and on the front foot, Olympic pulled the goal back just before halftime as some sensational ball movement around sort of the top of the box and then in towards Thomas James, doing what he knows best and doing what we all have seen him do over numerous seasons in the NPL, finishing into the bottom corner to bring Olympic back into this one, 2-1 the score at halftime. So obviously a lot of confidence for Olympic, getting themselves right back into it, pulling a goal back. And they would actually continue that form that they displayed at the end of that first half to get themselves a goal back to then level the score at 2-2, only 3 minutes in to the second half. And I mean, Matt, this might be one of the most remarkable goals remarkable and unexpected goals I think I've probably seen in NPL football for a while. It was, a ball fizzed across sort of the top of the 18-yard box from Thomas James, and Lucas Flores sort of just stuck his head out and got something on it, and remarkably the ball just sort of looped towards goal and underneath the crossbar, and before you knew it, we're looking at a 2-2 scoreline in what was an incredible goal that came sort of out of nowhere in that instance. And obviously from that moment onwards, it meant we really had a game on our hands now. Obviously, Gungahlin had done remarkably well to start the game on the front foot and essentially start fast, but then Olympic started to create some chances. They got a goal back. They took that confidence into the second half to get level. And, I think when a game's at the stage that it was in terms of it being 2-2, the minutes are ticking down, you start to think that the game's going to have to come down to a piece of individual quality for either side to get the winner in this contest. And that's exactly what we got, with Gianpaolo scoring a fantastic volley into the far corner to give Gunners all 3 points in this one. It was just a spectacular goal. We saw spectacular goals in this match, and it just goes to show how crazy this competition can be. Matt, you just talked about it when you were breaking down Canberra, Croatia and Tigers, and we got another entertainment-filled matchup with Gungahlin and Canberra Olympic. And we're only at this early stage of the season, so it only goes to show that this is probably going to continue into the future as well. Matt, what do we have for our round 4 fixtures?
All right, our round 4 fixtures are Tigers against Gungahlin United, Saturday, April 29th, 3 p.m. at AIS Grassfield 2. O'Connor Knights against Monaro Panthers is next up, Saturday, April 29th, also at 3 p.m. at O'Connor Enclosed. Next 2 matches are on a Sunday. Canberra, Croatia against West Canberra Wanderers, Sunday, April 30th, 3 p.m. at Deakin Stadium. Then we have Tuggeranong United against Canberra Olympic, Sunday, April 30th, 3 p.m. at Canberra 201. So matches are nice and easy and nice and spread out over the 2 days of next weekend. So hopefully it's good weather. People can get down, try and check out the matches, because we had some absolute cracking matches this week. Hello, everybody. Welcome to our NPLW segment of the show. The first matchup we had in the NPLW is Canberra United. 2-0 victory over West Canberra Wanderers. DeCampley and Cochrane were the ones with the goals. This is how it happened. We had Canberra United Academy opening the scoring via a spot kick as Alyssa DeCampley stepped up and calmly placed it in the back of the net. Very good composure there from DeCampley to finish that one off and give her team the lead. Then there was a counter-attack that ensued from the CUA that ended up with a neat ball over the top, which ended up at the feet of Cochrane, passed on to Cochrane, who placed it in the back of the net for the finish. Very nice looping ball, like I mentioned before there, from CUA. Overall, this victory for the CUA means that it's a second victory as well for them for the season, and a really nice bounce back as well from their loss last week to Canberra, Croatia. And then we've got West Canberra Wanderers on the other hand. Not the ideal start of the season to them. For them, 3 losses in 3 games. It also means they're the only team as well not to get a point on the board this season. So they are currently in 8th place. So yeah, unfortunately for them, but as we always say, early days, and they're only a win away from the next 2 teams that are just above them. So they'll be looking to make that next matchup, which we'll mention further on in the program, as an important one for them next week. CUA, on the other hand, we have quite an incredible instance. Granted, we're only 3 matches in, but this sort of shows you how competitive it is right now in this comp. We have 5 teams tying with 6 points at the top of the table. So we've got Belconnen United and Olympic, who are tied at the top for goal difference with a +4. Then we've got Canberra Croatia at a +3. Then we've got a Canberra United Academy at a +1, and then we've got Gungahlin United with -2. So 5 teams all tied on 6 points, and Canberra United essentially find themselves as I broke that down, essentially in third place technically, with obviously by goal difference. So I might have butchered all that, but that's the best way I can sort of explain it. With 5 teams being all on 6 points, so go have a check of the table. It sort of shows how competitive this comp is this season. Who do we have next up, Michael?
It definitely does go to show how competitive this competition is this season, Matt. That's for sure. Next up, we have Canberra Olympic 4-0 victors against Tuggeranong United. Goals to Burridge, Cook, and 2 goals for Michaela Thornton in this game. It took Canberra Olympic a little while longer than they would have hoped in this match to dust off the cobwebs, Matt. But in the end, their class shone through as they were able to pick up a victory and all 3 points in a stellar second half performance. A lot will be said about Tuggeranong's resilience and their continual improvement after a display like this from Paulo Romero. And he obviously would have been very pleased with how the match was going before the hour mark in this one. So, obviously Olympics goals in this game were very well taken, and it sort of just goes to show the quality that they have in their side, and especially once they get a goal. They're one of those teams in the competition, like a Belconnen United, like a Canberra Croatia, that once they get one goal, it sort of picks up a little bit of steam and it allows them to build their confidence and really run away with things. They've done it so many times in the past, and this season has proved to be no different. So it only instills more confidence once one goal is scored. And when you're in a position like Tuggeranong United's, it's always difficult to keep a good team like that out. And once that wall is eventually broken, it can then be hard to sort of steer the ship and essentially try and get yourselves back in the game without conceding any more goals. And, Olympic, like I said, yet again proved their golfing class and why they're one of the best teams in the competition. But for Paulo Romero and Tuggeranong United, I'm sure that they'll definitely be taking some positives out of that first, 55 minutes of play against a fantastic Canberra Olympics side. And this is something that they may not have pictured themselves in a similar situation a few years ago. It just goes to show how far they've come, and I'm sure that this won't be the last time we see Tuggeranong United putting forward a very strong performance, Matt. Who do we have next up?
I'm sure it won't. Next up, we had the big derby, Canberra Croatia against Belconnen United. It ended up 1-0, Brittany Palombi with the goal. Big clash and big derby for Jeremy and I, as we covered our first game as a commentary duo at Deakin Stadium for the season. Jeremy pulled out an interesting stat at the start of this one, that every league game between these two sides would be resulted, if it was a win, it would be resulted by the team who scored first. And since something like that since 2017. So ever since 2017, whoever scores first in this one ends up winning it, which in the end ended up like this, but there was a few twists and turns to get to this point. Overall, I thought it was a close first half. Both sides had their chances and their times in the match in this one. Both can sort of had their better parts of possession between the two sides. So it was pretty evenly matched, I thought, in that first half. The second half, Croatia came out with the better of it to begin it until maybe about 15 or 10 minutes in, where Belconnen started to get that edge back and sort of start to take more of their chances, where Croatia had it probably first to begin that second half. And then we got to a point in the match where Belconnen really started to turn it on and had their chances. They hit the post at one point. There was a great save as well by the keeper, Angel, at one point as well. And then there was this glorious chance as well, just missed by Bessie Reith-Muller, right in front of goal. So Belconnen United, between quite a few, and then there was a couple, and then there was a chance here or there. Croatia had chances just before this. So overall, the picture I'm painting is Belconnen United at this point was sort of had their hands on their head, thinking, how have we not taken the lead on quite a few moments here? And then Canberra Croatia, despite Belconnen having the best chances of the match, broke away. Brittany Palombi struck a shot that had an awkward bounce for Ellie Summers, and it bounced over her. Quite unlucky for Ellie Summers, but nonetheless, another goal for Brittany Palombi. And we've seen that. And so Belconnen United probably, again, would be scratching their heads thinking, how do we come away from this one without at least a point, or at least a win, or at least a point, from this one, considering the chances that they had. But Croatia did have their chances in this match as well, maybe not as close as the chances that Belconnen had at the end of the match, but they definitely had their moments in the match. So overall, this win means that there are 5 teams, after I wrote this, at the top of the table. And like I mentioned before, so it's just been one of those matches. Every team has lost a match. It's just been so competitive in this comp. Despite being annoyed at the results, I'm sure Belconnen have, a lot to take away from this one. Obviously, last week they had a big win against Canberra Olympics, so they've shown that they can get these big results early, which they were doing at the end of last year, but not at the start of last year. So it shows that Belconnen are right in the thick of things. So they definitely shouldn't hang their heads down after that loss. And Canberra Croatia take a massive win as well for themselves after losing to Canberra Olympic. It was in the first round of the season, I believe. So it was just such an awesome game, dramatic game. And it just goes to show you we are going to have a very, very competitive race all throughout the season in NPLW. Michael, who do we have next up?
Next up and last on our NPLW list is ANUWFC up against Gungahlin United. It was Gungahlin who managed to pull away with a 2-1 victory thanks to a double from Oliver in the first half and a goal from Williams for ANUW in the second half. It was another positive performance for the NPLW newcomers, Matt, but it was Gungahlin who snuck away with victory on the road, which will boast very well for them heading into the next part of this early season. As I mentioned, 2 goals from Oliver really got Gungahlin underway in this contest, as they were able to build a solid lead after a good first half performance. It obviously gave them a lot of confidence, especially when you consider the struggles that they had to really build leads last season. So I guess addressing that area and giving themselves an opportunity to play good football and build leads for themselves to give themselves, some breathing space in games is an area that they would have been focusing on, and it was on full display in this game. Like we've said in previous weeks, Matt, when we're talking about ANUW, ANUW, they don't seem to give up hope. And, when they managed to get themselves back in through Williams in the second half, it proved to be a real sense of optimism that they could get themselves back into the match. And maybe if this was up against a Gungahlin United outfit from last season, they may as well have potentially gone on to do that. But obviously, in this case, Gungahlin, their experience in this competition was what proved to be the difference against a new coming side like ANUW. And, like I said, last season, this may have been a result that Gungahlin may have let slip. They may have ended up drawing or eventually losing this match as they struggled for consistency. But nevertheless, they look as though that they're working on changing that narrative for this season as they look to get themselves back into the finals football picture later down the track. Matt, do you want to get into the NPLW round 4 fixtures?
Yeah, and well done to Gungahlin United, and what a signing Ginger Oliver has been for them, as demonstrated from her goals on the weekend. All right, next up, we have those round 4 fixtures from NPLW as we continue the very competitive women's competition this year. We have another primetime matchup for you, Friday, April 28th, 7:45 p.m. from Canberra 201, it's Tuggeranong United against Canberra, Croatia. Next up on Sunday, we have Canberra Olympic against ANUW FC, Sunday, April 30th, 2:30 p.m. at O'Connor Enclosed. Then we have Gungahlin United against Canberra United Academy, Sunday, April 30th, 3 p.m. at Gungahlin Enclosed. Then we have Belconnen United against the West Canberra Wanderers, Sunday, April 30th, 3 p.m. at McKellar Park.
Our CPL segment of the show to round things off, Matt. We'll kick things off with Canberra Juventus, who played hosts to Wagga City Wanderers. It was the Wanderers who came away with a 4-1 victory in this one. A double for Cazzola, a goal for Prest, and a goal for Plongenes. And for Canberra Juventus, Duck was on the score sheet for the home side. And for them, it looked to get off to a great start for them, ideally. As they scored in the opening 22 minutes of this game, in the battle of the black and white stripes, as we're calling it, through Duck 22 minutes in, this being his second goal of the season. It was the Wanderers who struck level about 10 minutes later into the contest, Matt, through Cazzola, as he followed up just before the end of the half with his brace to give the Wanderers a 2-1 advantage at the interval. These two goals take Cazzola's impressive goals tally to 6 goals in 3 games. So he's a man in form for the Wanderers this season. Top of the CPL goal scoring standings as well to go along with it. Wanderers were the only ones to score in the second half through Prest in the 61st minute, so just after the hour mark, to extend it to 3-1 before 10 minutes later, where Polonges followed up to make it 4-1 and score his first goal of the season. So ideally, it was a great second half performance for Wagga City Wagga City Wanderers to extend their lead in the second half after what was a closely contested first 45 minutes against Canberra Juventus. It's obviously not the scoreline or result Juve would have been hoping for, but they started the match well, and that's something that they can look to take a lot of confidence from heading into their next match, not only just starting well and getting a lead, but obviously maintaining that and getting the 3 points. Wanderers follow up strongly from their win last week, Matt. They find themselves in third place, 1 point behind Belconnen and 3 points behind league leaders Queanbeyan, who've started the season very well, which we will get into a little bit later in this CPL segment. Matt, who is our next matchup in CPL?
Our next matchup is Belconnen United against Brindabella Blues. This was a tightly contested 1-1 draw with all the goals coming late. The match was moved, I believe, to AS Synthetic. I don't believe it was originally on that. I could be wrong, though. Belconnen opened the scoring, though, first through a penalty kick. Tunney stepped up to convert that penalty kick at a crucial period of the game, which was the 86th minute. But the Brindis, on the other hand, were determined to get their first points of the season, however, and equalised just before stoppage time in the 89th minute as Henry Wilkes scored. As mentioned before, this is Brindis' first points of the season, and most importantly for them, bouncing back after last week's 6-0 defeat to White Eagles. As we've said a lot today, still early days of the season, but I'm sure the Brindis will get back to winning ways soon. But regardless, good bounce back, and it was good for them to sort of quickly respond to that first goal from Belco so late into the matchup. The Brindis goal, however, for Belco means that they are the first side to drop points in this promotion battle, with Queanbeyan as now Queanbeyan sit on the top of the table by 2 points. As we said before, still early days, but I get the feeling that this is going to really be a week by week race. It usually always is, but what I mean by that I think this is really going to be a tit for tat race this season for promotion. It's also worth noting that Belco did back up midweek from their Oz Cup qualifying match on Wednesday, which they booked their place in the semi-finals for. So congratulations to them. ANUFC, Michael. Next up.
That's right, Matt. It was ANU up against Queanbeyan City in this contest, and it was Queanbeyan City who came away with a 3-1 victory. Goals from Delahi, Golevsky, and Trajkovsky, followed by a goal from the ANU standpoint for Manly. So it was ANU that actually started the stronger of the two sides, and they scored in the opening 5 minutes of the game, courtesy of Andrew Manley. It was Queanbeyan who then responded in the next 10 minutes as they equalised through Delahi. So it was 1-1 after 15 minutes. Certainly entertaining to kick things off in this game for the spectators. Ryan Golevsky followed up on the goal scoring board as Queanbeyan doubled their lead less than 10 minutes before half time. And this was Golevsky's second goal for the season. Queanbeyan were the only ones to find themselves on the scoreboard in the second half, Matt, as they stretched their lead out to 3-1 as Nikola Trajkovsky's killed off the encounter with a third goal for his side in the afternoon in what was a great game for the visiting Queanbeyan outfit. ANU find themselves with the other three sides in Yoogali, White Eagles, and Canberra Juventus tied on 3 points. It is also worth mentioning that ANU backed up midweek from the Australian Cup qualifying action against Gungahlin United. Still early days, though, for that outfit as they continue on into the season. As for the other outfit in this equation, Queanbeyan City, this is... this victory remains, means that they're the only side after 3 games to win all 3 of their matches so far. So it sort of goes to show how well they've been doing to start the 2023 campaign and their real intent to get promotion this season. They're placed at the top of the table, leading Belconnen by 2 points and Wagga by 3 points. This in turn, as mentioned before, also means that Queanbeyan take the first lead in the race for promotion this season. So like you said a little bit ago, Matt, I think the race for promotion this season is certainly going to be a little bit closer than what it was last season, where Tuggeranong established their dominance early and were able to gain promotion back to NPL football. So we'll see what happens over the next few weeks or so in the anticipation to see who gets promoted from the CPL to NPL this season. Matt, who do we have for our last encounter for CPL before we get into the competition's round 4 fixtures?
Well, last up, we had Yoogali with their first home game of the season. Big 3-1 victory against Canberra White Eagles. Bailey, DeRossi, and Donadell with the goals, and then Belyansky with the goal for White Eagles. Player coach Darren Bailey opened the scoring for the home side 30 minutes into the encounter. This was Bailey's 4th goal of the season. Yoogali scored a second just before halftime as Bailey went on a driving run through midfield, 1-2'd it, did a 1-2, and then laid it off across goal for DeRossi for the finish. White Eagles responded strongly, though, to begin the second half as they halved the deficit 5 minutes into it with a neat switch of play across the field into the path of Alexander Belyansky, who cracked a very neat shot at the far right post. Very nice goal there from him. Yoogali responded to that, though, 10 minutes later as Mason Donadell intercepted a White Eagles pass on the halfway line and made an absolute driving run for goal. No one was able to catch him, and he neatly placed it on the right-hand side of the keeper for 3-1. Now, not the result White Eagles would have been looking for, but as we know, it's very tough to go to Yoogali and try and take points away from them at that fortress. The White Eagles, though, are coming off that big 6-0 victory just before this against Brindabella. So they do have points on the board this season. Yoogali, on the other hand, begin their first home match of the campaign with a win. It's also their first win of the season as well. Let's not forget they had a very close matchup. I think it was 4-3 was the score. Was it 3-2 or something like that for their first match of the season as well. So they've had very competitive matches to begin with. Now their first win. And as I mentioned before, they really do make that Solomad Stadium a fortress there in Griffith. And they have a lot to draw on as well after their next encounter as they host Belconnen United next week, which also leads into our fixtures. Michael, what are the fixtures for next week? I just mentioned one there.
Yes, you did, Matt. CPL round 4 fixtures. You've got Canberra Juventus up against ANU FC Saturday, April 29th, 3 p.m. at Ainslie Field 2, followed by Canberra White Eagles against Queanbeyan City. This one should be an absolute cracker, one of the ones that you circle in the calendar for CPL action. Saturday, April 29, 3 p.m. Woden Park, enclosed.
Michael, can I just make a quick prediction there at the White Eagles and Queanbeyan game? I'm going to predict that they sell out of Eagle Burgers. That's my prediction.
I think the real prediction will be sort of how long will it take them to sell out of Eagle Burgers? It'll probably take them less than 5 minutes.
Yeah, maybe even just before the game, there'll be a big line of Eagle Burgers or a big wait of pre-orders for the Eagle Burgers. It's always a cracking encounter, that one. Hopefully I can get out to that one.
Absolutely. So next up, we've got Brindabella Blues up against Wagga City Wanderers, Saturday, 29th of April, 3 p.m. at Ipon Park in Corwell. And lastly, we have Yoogali up against Belconnen United, Sunday, April 30th, 1:30 p.m. at Solomad Stadium. So Yoogali looking to make an impression against the former NPL side, Belconnen United, at home at Solomad Stadium. Some great fixtures there. We've touched on them, Matt. It's going to be another great, entertaining weekend of football, which we will then dissect together on our next episode.
Yeah, and let's hope the matches are just as entertaining as these ones were. Hopefully the weather's just as good as this weekend was as well. It was actually quite pleasant for both days for football. So let's hope it continues that way. Any last words, Michael, before we sign off for this week?
Not much else to add other than I'm looking forward to more football action. It's always the case when it's sort of the start of the week and you're just counting down the days for games on the weekend. I know that there's numerous games across the different competitions that will stand out and that people will get out to and watch, and I'll certainly be keeping an eye and watching some of the football over the course of the weekend. So hopefully we'll have a lot to talk about and dissect together when we talk about all the football that's occurred over the weekend, Matt. But nevertheless, it's going to be a great weekend, great football, and we will do what we always do, and that's break it down for everyone in the Canberra community.
Yeah, we certainly will, and Webby should be with us next week to break down everything CPL for the first time this season since the preview. Always good having him on. And it should be a very, very interesting weekend, as we mentioned, considering that we have very, very competitive comps all around the board to begin the season, which might not have been the case the last previous couple of seasons, at least to begin with. So there is a lot to look forward to, everybody. And also, as we record this and we get this out, enjoy your Anzac Day, enjoy your weekend following that, and as always, enjoy the football. Thank you, everybody.